My favorite game series of all time has gotta be Final Fantasy. Whether it is mainline entries or random spin-offs, Final Fantasy X or Final Fantasy Tactics, I feel like the entire franchise manages to create some of the best worlds, the best characters, the best magic. And Diofield Chronicle, this feels like the next Final Fantasy, and I absolutely love that. What's up gamers, Dreamcast Guy here. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. This video, if it happens to get 3,000 likes, I am going to be giving away a copy of Diofield over on my Twitter account. But what is this game? On the surface, how does this game actually look and how does it play? A lot of the DNA inside this project definitely feels like Final Fantasy. Even stuff like the lead concept artist of this game worked on FF12. And to me, I do feel like that spirit comes through in the best way. But what is just Diofield by itself? This is a real-time tactical battler. Now what that means is that in this you're controlling 4 separate units at once. You're roaming around these designated battlefields, fighting off dragons and goblins, evil armies and invading forces. But the big twist of this is that whenever you like, while you can move around and battle very fluidly, you can choose to stop time and decide what you want your next choice to be. Whether it is a big magic ability, a strong heal, using some items, or just trying to retreat if somebody's doing a lot of hefty damage. The battling system in this is honestly the best part of it. There's a ton of main quests, there's a ton of side quests, and during the course of my playthrough of Diofield, I did pretty much every single thing I possibly could. I was really kind of motivated to get max level, to finish all the talent trees, to actually get the strongest weapons in the entire game, and I feel like this is one of those games, much like a classic Final Fantasy, that rewards your dedication. But real quick, let's talk about the story in a completely spoiler-free fashion. So, Diofield Chronicle is set on a tiny island called Diofield. Now, the purpose of this island is pretty much just to live in harmony. Everybody's very kumbaya, living out their best days. When suddenly, basically World War Magic 5 breaks out. Now, typically you think that they'd be safe because they're on this far-off version of digital Australia, when it turns out that actually there is a very valuable resource on Diofield Island called Jade. The mineral Jade is actually used for a lot of the biggest and deadliest of magics. People who are using it to enslave minds, to summon monsters, or even just unleash terrible fires upon the land. Jade is consumed in order to do that, which means people need as much Jade as possible. Consider it like magic bullets. So suddenly, this little delicate resource that's so plentiful on Diofield is now ground zero for some of the worst catastrophes. Thankfully, though, we are a mercenary army who just happens to be headquarters in Diofield. This means that throughout the course of the story, we begin by just trying to battle against bandits, and eventually we're going against gun-wielding people who are literally washing up on shore in huge battle cruisers. I love the escalation of tension inside of Diofield, but I have to say that my favorite part about the story is that at times it actually tries to be funny. I love Final Fantasy Tactics a lot, but I don't feel like they ever managed to have any levity. It always felt so deadly serious, whereas here occasionally, like at one point I was talking to a scientist about getting some weapon upgrades, and he was like, "Oh, are you here about my evil secret weapon?" And I was like, no, I'm not here about your evil secret weapon. And he's like, oh, okay, well then I don't have an evil secret weapon. Let's just talk about what you need. I don't know, these tiny moments, characters are honestly very horny and flirty sometimes. There's these really great optional dialogues. Some of the side quests are purely just conversations that give you a deeper look into this group of heroes. But that brings me back to the combat itself, because who these characters are is very based upon how they behave in combat. So this real-time tactical battle system is very heavily based on placement beyond anything else. If you hit somebody in the back, no matter what, it does double damage. So if you're playing as somebody like this little thief guy, he can actually teleport directly behind somebody and do a hefty super strike, which again is going to be an instant critical. Or if you're somebody like a healer, it's good to be able to also get some spells that may be able to freeze or disarm your opponents. If you're playing as the Dragon Rider, you have to choose between, do I want to have abilities that can push people back with tornadoes, or just breathe fire to torch and make the entire landscape unlivable believable to my enemies. I really enjoyed the fact that each of these characters is just so completely different. No two are even really similar. People are having guns or giant magic or huge mounted horseback special attacks, and because of this, I like the fact that it makes you want to try and test out the different characters. But here's the interesting bit of it. You can only have 4 people at once in a party, 4 total, that's it. But there's like 20 characters in the game total that can be recruited. So if you choose, what you can do is equip a second person almost like a subclass. Like for example, if I'm using somebody like a deadly black mage who can just scald the earth or blow people away, I usually give his subclass as a different style of caster. Somebody that maybe can stun foes or even just poison them instantaneously. Now what's interesting is that you don't have to attach the same class. In fact, as an experiment, I definitely gave a bow person, someone that's just wielding like a little teeny tiny bow and arrow, a bunch of melee stun attacks so that if anybody got close, I could stun and run away. It's really cool that you can build such a customized party to exactly fit your needs, but that brings me to the part of this that's definitely the most vital, which is situational awareness. This game can be very, very tough. Not all the time. I feel like a lot of the chapters are relatively a breeze to get through. The side quests are kind of a joke at times, but there's big old bosses that have multiple health bars and constantly are knocking you back and doing area effect, big explosions and stuff like that. When these guys show up, sometimes the best tactic is bait, is distracting them, is pulling them into like an explosive barrel, or sometimes just weakening them with big area attacks of your own. Like at times, one of the interesting parts is certain missions, you can skip enemies. If there's patrolling forces and you're sneaking into an enemy kingdom, it's kind of nice to just creep down a back alleyway, take out the people you need and avoid the ones you don't. There is a surprising amount of interesting depth to a combat system like this because you can kind of suck at it. I kind of appreciate a game that requires you pay attention. I'll be honest, I froze time constantly just to actually consider, where do I want to go next? Where is a hidden treasure chest on this map? Is it worth trying to take down this big sniper if I can just sneak around the back and set off another explosive? It's an interesting dynamic, but this brings me to the downsides. The biggest complaint I have about this game is that honestly, at times it can feel repetitive. Once you've customized your group of casters and damage dealers to your liking, you're not going to want to experiment too much. Honestly, because of the steep difficulty of bosses, a lot of times you're going to get your 4 main dudes that you like the most, you're going to get the subclasses set up that you feel like are the most beneficial to your playstyle, and then at times it can feel like too much experimentation gets overly punished. And the other downside is going to sound like a very weird complaint, but let me explain. You are dead ass broke in this game. Like, you get hefty paychecks. Like in chapters 4 and 5, sometimes you're getting like $20,000 on a mission or something like that. But the problem is that everything escalates in cost. Your accessories, your magic research, a lot of times just building that next weapon. This stuff is incredibly expensive. Like, this is just a random mid-game dagger that costs over $40,000, which means at a lot of times you're either having to choose between having outdated gear or just equipping only certain of your people with optimal equipment. It makes it a bit weird because what you end up having to do is you can go to this side table to replay missions, which gives you extra cash and obviously extra experience points. It feels weird to grind the same missions again and again and again to properly equip yourself for that next hard mission, but here it is required. This is not optional. I did every side quest, every side errand, every optional objective, because if you beat missions fast or don't let your teammates die, you get extra bonuses. I did everything, and I was still constantly trying to scrimp and save to actually get optimal equipment, which also brings me to the other part of the upgrade system. So whenever you beat missions very quickly or very efficiently, you get these additional rewards, which are like gold bars or crystals that let you upgrade your summons or your gear tree. So this will make it where you can buy like an extra super dagger or like a new wand to unlock new magic. But the weird part of this is that once you do that, you still have to buy the item. It just unlocks it in the shop, which again, because these are just so prohibitively expensive, there was times where I was so broke, I didn't even bother going to unlock the next item because I knew that there was no way in heck I'm even going to be able to buy it. It's better to just grind and get a little bit of extra cash before I even bother looking at the next upgrade tree. The last problem I have was much more infrequent, but it did pop up occasionally, which was pathing issues. Whenever you command people to run away or attack a target, it feels like the way they choose to go is completely randomized. There was times where somebody was about to unleash a big super attack, I freeze time, I can see where the damage circle is going to be at, and for some reason my characters run in the most inoptimal path and end up getting hit and killed by it. I also had a time where I was fighting a giant wolf boss that was incredibly difficult. My healer got hit, she died, and I couldn't revive her because since she's on top of this teeny tiny rock, for some reason it just said, oh, there's no path available. I can see that she's right there with her little boo-boos. Why can't I pick her up? I actually failed this mission simply because I could not pick up the person whose hand I'm basically holding. These are tiny glitches. These are tiny problems with a game that overall is still exceptionally fun. I don't feel like Diofield Chronicle is for everybody. It is for Final Fantasy fans or for people that are really craving that next tactical battler. But for me, as a fan of this genre, I am extremely happy with it. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go over to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Diofield Chronicle a 9 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching this video, gamers. If you enjoyed it, give it a big old thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Man, I'm glad they got this right. Now give me Final Fantasy Tactics Remastered. I know you have it. Give it to me. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.